Hello. Thank you for joining today's webinar, How to Select the Right ERP Vendor, featuring a special guest, Mickey North-Rizza, Program Vice President, Enterprise Applications and Digital Commerce at IDC, and Paul Farrell, Senior Vice President of Product Marketing at Oracle NetSuite. Mickey, thank you for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone, and good day. It's great to be here. So today we're going to look at how to select the right ERP vendor in the mid-market. And so what we have for you is an agenda that looks at what is driving ERP purchases, the challenges selecting the right product, IDC and the IDC Marketscape, IDC Marketscape SaaS and cloud-enabled mid-market ERP vendor assessment 2017, and some key takeaways. So let's get started. First, digital transformation is a big enabler right now of new ERP purchases. Companies have spent the last 5 to 10 years working on bringing up their CRM and sales side of the equation, or as we call it, the front office, making sure that they can make the customer's experience one that's most memorable and will ensure that the customer does repeat business with themselves. Great avenue, great pathway, and it's brought a lot of revenue to many companies. But ERP, or the back office, and some of the applications that are around it have not had the same type of, setup from a digital transformation side. And what's happened, our companies are understanding that the front and back office need to talk to each other, and the back office, unfortunately, has just been shafted. Well, with digital transformation being very, very critical for companies and being on the forefront of what they're trying to do, companies are now saying we need to change our investment strategy and we need to really start bringing everything together so that we bring all the information that we have and all the data and everything together so our customers can do really well, as well as our enterprise and our business itself. So what you're seeing is digital transformation is coming forward front and center. And another way to look at it is the information is the new oil. So what we found is when we look at digital transformation at IDC, you're transforming, you're looking at new sources of innovation and creativity that really enhance your overall experience when you're utilizing all the systems and technologies that you have to use, and it actually improves your financial performance. It enhances the financial performance because it allows you to make better decisions. You have more information, data at the right set. It takes all that information, puts it in context, and allows you to gather insights to make a better decision the first time instead of going through multiple iterations or multiple processes to get to the next step. And it definitely includes technology. But the technology included is around the third platform. It's cloud, it's mobile, it's social, and it's big data analytics. And if you're really going to do digital transformation, you're going to leave it open enough from an innovation standpoint that you have advanced security, that you have advanced analytics, that you have cognitive and AI, that you have IoT, and that you can even bring in 3D printing. And at some point in time, when the world's ready and the regulations come forward and they bring it forward, blockchain. At IDC, we see it as a $6.3 trillion direct digital transformation investment over 4 years, and you can see the numbers there over the 4-year period. You see that the spending goes up and up and up from an investment side, and when you start thinking about it, you understand quickly that companies really do need to transform their back office and their ERP systems. So how are organizations actually measuring this and understanding where they need to go? Well, there's a lot of trends going on, and it comes around some KPIs that we're helping companies understand from a digital standpoint. First, 33% of CEOs will have technology leadership experience. A couple years ago, 5, 6, maybe 7, it was around supply chain becoming the new leaders. Now it's technology that's really driving everything. Again, information is the new oil, and you need that technology to get you that next step. 2, 35% improvement in Net Promoter Scores when customers own their experience. Think about what I said about how all the focus has been on the front office and CRM and sales over the last 5 to 10 years. It's really been changing our customer experience. On a day-to-day basis, when you go to buy something, whether it's holiday season or a need that you have, if you don't have time to go to the store, in many cases you're doing it online. And guess what? They're making it very intuitive and very easy with a user interface that allows you to quickly and smartly work through it. And within a minute or two, your shopping's complete, and you can go on to the next task at hand that you have. Greater than 100% growth of revenue from information-based products. Many companies right now don't just do their original products and services. In many cases, they're looking at things from a whole different perspective. And that is, they have a lot of data, a lot of information they gather internally, and they also can sell that externally to other companies and enterprises that need to use that to have a better financial performance. So it really is about information-based information and products that can change it. 40% of operational processes will be self-healing. Well, if you no longer have to do all the transactions yourself and pull it, extract it, put it together, predict, and do all these other things, and you have the data in the right spot, and you start looking at that from an intelligence standpoint, put all these massive amounts of information around it, and then put it in context, all of a sudden, everything starts coming together in such a fashion that some of the things will start doing work for you automatically. Those transactions can get processed faster because the computer can take it over, and you yourself can spend more time gleaning the insights and making the right decisions for a better outcome in the future. And the last piece is that we are expecting a 50% reduction in management layers. So yes, it sounds sad, but in reality, if your technology partner can enable more for you and bring more to the table so that you can get more done on the technology side and spend your time managing the relationship with your customers and your suppliers and your partners and those within your ecosystem, you're going to have a better financial performance and have much better competitive advantage for your company. Unfortunately, companies are at a digital transformation deadlock. 55% are either a digital explorer or a digital player. They're just getting into it. They've got pieces of it they're putting together, but they really haven't gone into a transformer where they're using it to make a significant difference in their business. And the reason is, in most cases, they're lacking a cloud or SaaS-enabled ERP system, or they only have few applications, or they haven't even done the front office. The more that you can pull together and become more innovative and rely on that technology partner to do a lot of things for you, the more you optimize those resources and you start that digital transformer side and become a digital disruptor. But what's causing some of the issues here? It really is, from a mid-market perspective, many of the companies that are larger on the high end of the mid-market, which would be, I guess, closer to the billion side of the equation, have been using legacy systems that have really constrained them. They've done a lot of heavy investments for capital expenditure, maintenance, customization, and it's cost them a lot of money over time. Plus, they also have an IT department that's helping them keep it going, which is fantastic. It's done a lot of great things for them. Unfortunately, legacy systems have seen their day. So what happens is they have one team that keeps everything going for them on the legacy side just so they maintain it, and they have another team that starts looking at SaaS and cloud-enabled applications. And as they do that, they start to recognize they need to move in a new direction. Unfortunately, you have a dichotomy or a bimodal aspect that divides your enterprise into silos, and the organization is stymied and can't move fast enough. Hence, if you think about that digital transformation investment in the latter years of going to 1.7 and 2 in 2019 and 2020 and bringing that investment up to 6.3 trillion, you understand where some of the money is being spent and how significant it is for companies to start looking and getting rid of some of their legacy side of the equation. But on the bottom end of the mid-market area, and that would be anything from the edge of a small business to 100 million to a billion to 5 million, what you're seeing are the smaller organizations have outgrown their current systems. They're using Excel too much or Access databases. They can't get the visibility they want. They're extracting. They're spending all this extra time on processes just to get something done, and then they still have to go back through and audit everything to make sure it comes together, when visibility is such a critical factor and it's not all in one system. So you're really seeing two big drivers there from the legacy and the small business side, depending on your business side, as well as the largest driver around digital transformation. Now, let's look at the challenges in selecting the right product. First challenge is around you need an RFP. So many of the companies that we speak to have an RFP process, or we call it a siloed sourcing activity, where the technology folks are out there saying, oh, we need newer ERP system, we're going to look at X, Y, and Z, and they've started relationships with some of the vendors. And by the time it comes down to it, the RFP basically is outdated, it's taken too long, or in this case, they put it all together, but in reality, they don't even know if that's what they want or what they need. And part of it is because of the research that has not been done around the difference between traditional ERP to SaaS and cloud-enabled ERP systems, as well as organizations not understanding that they can be much more nimble and they can scale quicker if they move forward in a very innovative environment. The second piece is the shift in decision-making process from the buyer behavior standpoint. So, once again, the buyers know the vendor offerings. When we look at this from an IDC standpoint, you can see in some of the survey work we found that most companies want to be able to make a decision. The second most important criteria for them is looking at a cloud-enabled pilot. They want to use their own data. They want to be able to look at it and say, what's this going to do for me? How's it going to work? What the business process looks like, and how quickly and scalable can it handle things as I bring on new areas. You also see companies looking at blog sites, professional and social. They're looking at research companies and reports similar to what IDC brings forward with our analyst viewpoints, technical forums, webcasts, podcasts, webinars like today, and microblogs. So there's a lot of information out there. Unfortunately, it can also be very confusing. So you really need to look at the right area and get the right information and make sure a lot of the information that you're looking at has been vetted for you. Because the last thing you want to do is spend a lot of extra time that you don't have. What we find also are companies are focused on solutions or requirements, and they want to be able to solve their business problems of brand recognition and customer loyalty, customer sat. They're also looking at how they can change their business around. And one of the things I hear all the time is, and I'm telling you, I hear it in all the reference calls I do, well, our business is really unique. And what we figured out is, as unique as it is, it's really not that unique because there are many other businesses that are very similar, but they have different practices, and we've learned to adjust to some of those practices and learn some different nuances of things that we can do better. So you're starting to see a shift here where companies are saying, what can I do better, and how can I do a better job of sourcing what I need? So IDC, we are a research firm. We help companies make the right decisions so that they can understand what they need, how to bring it forward, how to utilize it, and get the best out of the system selection that they need. And we cover every area from every piece of technology you can absolutely think of, from phones to databases to hardware to all sorts of business processes, outsourcing, and whatnot. So with that brief little commercial, let me take you into the Marketscape. So one of the things that we do is we spend a lot of time on research. We work with a lot of practitioners. We call them the IT buyer, whether it's line of business or IT side, and we ask them, what's valuable for them when they're making the right decisions. And it comes down to the final justification of the ROI is huge for them. They're looking at product failures. They're trying to understand what's most important to them, how they get at this information, what do the peers have to say, what are the references saying, are there watch out or things I need to worry about? Is there, a roadmap that the supplier has, and what should that be? And if I'm not getting it, how do I get it? What are some of the case studies and things going on? And then how do I do that from a competitive standpoint? All of this we cover in what IDC calls our Marketscape. We actually call it our IDC Marketscape, and it looks at an evaluation. It's evaluation of the vendors in a particular market, and there's, like I said, many markets. I couldn't even tell you how many we have at IDC, but they're past the hundreds, into maybe 1,000. And we look at it from a capabilities and strategies of all the vendors that participate in the Marketscape. So when we do that, we also can take that information, because we have so much research and knowledge, and speak to the end users about their technology decision. We can help them align with the technology and a strategic roadmap. If they're going to go down one path, but they want to consider another, and they're starting to look at different nuances, we have particular analysts who go into all those areas, both from strategy to implementation to who the partners are that you may need to the enterprise applications that you may need as well. And then that supplier selection or vendor selection, and then the technology assessment of it. So, 61% of our end user inquiries involve a technology decision. So let's get into the Marketscape a little bit. Basically, it looks like it's like this on the right side with capabilities and strategies. You'll see 4 different segments there, and we're looking at the capability of what the vendor can support now. What does the vendor have in functionality? What can it do now? And then the strategy side of it, will the vendor support me in the long term? What's the innovation strategy? Are they looking at what I described earlier around innovation accelerators, and what's that roadmap look like, and how are they going to get there? And do they have pilot programs or companies that they're working with to get them to that next standpoint? So when we do this, we look at criteria for it from a vendor assessment standpoint, and the groupings that we use are the offering, their go-to-market strategy, and their business case. This can change depending on the markets that we're looking at, but in this case, this is what we looked at. And then we break it in, as I said, into these 4 buckets. And this is the same chart, just turned on its side, showing a different market. And the leaders are showing you that they have all areas that they can handle the strategy and the capabilities of absolutely everything. The major players have most of everything, maybe not everything, and they may excel in one area versus another. The contenders have a lot of strengths, but they also may be different because of a different focus with their product or geography. They may focus on just one industry. They may focus in one particular geography, or have a subset of products that are great, but they aren't necessarily the whole set of products that the rest of the leaders or major players have. And then there's the participants, and they're either one of 2 things. They're either those that are new to the market and just making a splash and trying to get their name out there and start to understand where they need to go and start to relook at their strategy from a technology standpoint, to those that might be fading away or are still there and have a good bulk of customers and whatnot, and they've had some really good references in that, but they just aren't maybe the top area. And the last thing I'll tell you is we have a bubble size here, which in most cases matches it to the vendor revenue size. It's arbitrary that we place it on it. Many times we work with a lot of private companies, and a lot of that information is something they're not real forthcoming on their revenue side. So we put them in buckets, and you can see here we've got small, medium, and large type circles here. And then the process here, so we define the market, we look at evaluation criteria and the vendor inclusion criteria. I'll tell you, when we evaluate and we start going through this of what the evaluation criteria is, we actually come up with our scoring methodology first. We say, what do we want to score on? And then what does that look like? And what are the selections that vendor can make? And we lay all of that out. And then we go ahead and we send what we call our request for information to our vendors. They work through that process, and it usually takes them a few weeks to come back at it. Sometimes they're very, very deep, and in this case, we did that. We had, I think, 180 different lines of questions here because we wanted to get at quite a bit of information. And then we also do what we call our vendor briefings with the vendors, where they have an hour to give us the information about who and what they are, what they bring to the table. In the last usually 10 minutes, we'll ask questions that we need clarity on from their RFI. And we also ask that each vendor give us a list of at least 3 references. In some cases, we get 6, 7, and 8, which is fantastic. I think it's very interesting that many vendors ignore this. We've had one series of Marketscape where we had no vendor references, and I will tell you, vendor references account for a very, very high score within our Marketscapes because we take seriously what the end users have to say. We score the vendors, and then we write what we call a vendor profile. And that vendor profile is a brief introduction about the vendor, who and what they are, where they're located, and then we say what their score is, whether they are in the leader, a major player, contender, or participants. And then we go into the strengths of the solution, and it may include 1 or 2 pieces of information from a reference without naming the reference or the company, but just some straightforward information because all of the reference information is kept under NDA or not disclosed. And then the challenges that the vendor may face are things we'd like to see them do better. And those sometimes are very straightforward. In other cases, we see some things that we'd like to see them do, and we'll bring that forward to them. And then the last piece is use this particular vendor when, and we give you some guidance of vendors that you should consider as you go through this RFI. We create the charts, and then we publish the document. So it's a straightforward process, but it takes quite a few months. And the reason is the vendors have to complete the RFI. We need to schedule the reference calls, and at various times of the year, the references are hard to bring forward, and other times they move really quickly. So it's just a matter of pulling all this information together. Okay, so now let's look at IDC's Marketscape, the SaaS and Cloud-Enabled Mid-Market ERP Vendor Assessment 2017. In this particular Marketscape, I believe we looked at 14 different vendors here. I'll give you an example here. You'll see one company, the first name's listed in there twice with a name after it. If a buy happens during the middle of our Marketscape assessment, we still put the vendor in there, but we refer to them by their new company and their old company name. We looked at 52 different references throughout this research. And then on the side here, you'll see that I have some quotes from some of our clients around we're giving them the right depth, the facts, and the data that we bring forward, and we make it very actionable. So you can see here that based on who your leaders are, who your major players are, who your contenders are, and who your participants are. And then the assessment criteria we use for this particular MarketScape, we looked at customer satisfaction, we looked at the financial stability of the particular vendor, the functionality of the offering, how broad was it, how deep was it, are there pieces that are missing? We looked at pricing and the structure of the product offered. We looked at a range of services that come forward here, their SaaS capabilities, and their total cost of ownership. And then within that, I think it's important to look at that we have criteria selection, weighting, and vendor scores represent a huge, well-researched IDC judgment about the market and specific vendors. I can tell you in this particular MarketScape, there were 5 different analysts involved in from the beginning to the end and all the briefings and all the references. We've kept complete documented notes on everything that we have found through this process. It also has market weightings that are based on our interviews with the users, their buyer surveys, and the input of those of us in the market and what we bring to the equation. We look at the vendor scores and the vendor positioning, and then we do that by looking at the detailed surveys and interviews we've had with the vendors, and in addition, publicly available information that we have found that may augment what we already have and the end user's experiences. And we did a lot of this over, weeks at a time. Most of us have taken a lot of these calls, put everything together, and then went through and each scored it independently and then rolled up our scores so that we could have an argument internally to understand why one position won one way, one position another way, and come to some conclusions based on information pieces. And again, there's some more information here from some of our customers here. So, I think it's important on the SaaS and cloud-enabled mid-market ERP vendor assessment that the reference impact was huge. Customer reference-related input contributed to 36% of all the vendor scores in the MarketScape that were in capabilities and 30% in strategy. They also contributed to qualitative content in the vendor profile and additional considerations about the vendor strategy. We really take seriously what the end user and the IT buyer, what their thoughts are and where they go on this. So lastly, I'm going to finish it up with a few key takeaways, and then we're going to move it forward to Paul. So first, we're experiencing a once-in-a-generation transformation. We really are going through a digital transformation right now. Just look at your personal life and how you utilize your computer and your phone and it's with you all the time. Well, the same thing's happening on the enterprise level. So don't think it's just something that, oh yeah, it's another hot selling technique. Forget it. We're going through it and it's major. Second, the right ERP system is speed, value, and innovation. But part of that is because it's SaaS and cloud enabled. It's allowing you to be more innovative, it's bringing the right aspects to the table, and it's allowing you to change as a company. Third, ERP is the strategic asset. So utilize the right selection process. If the RFI is too long, then get with your provider. Understand those companies that you're looking at, give them data points. Have them take you through a pilot with that information so you can see how it's going to work, how your processes are going to change, and how things are going to be different. And lastly, the time to act was yesterday. Your front office may be changed, but if your back office isn't, the two are not going to be speaking together. With that, I'm going to throw it over to Paul Farrell. Paul?
Great. Thanks very much, Mickey. That was an excellent presentation on how to select an ERP vendor in today's market. Just to reiterate, my name is Paul Farrell. I head up product marketing for NetSuite, which is a global business unit of Oracle. And I'll shortly be presenting a couple of key capabilities that make NetSuite the leader in the mid-market cloud ERP MarketScape. Now, as you were presenting, Mickey, I took a couple of notes and I have a couple of questions on some of the pertinent points you were making, and I'd just like to, ask a couple of questions regarding that. So,
sure.
The RFP process is outdated. That's certainly the message that's coming across. As it's focused on what we know, not what we don't know a lot of the time when a company's putting it together. And as you've mentioned, technology is outpacing best practice or what we have known. So what can a prospect do or a customer do really to produce an effective RFP where they do outline what's needed in their new system, so they're taking into account what they don't know?
I think there's a couple things. First is you have to remember that, as you move into the cloud and SaaS enabled, it's much more a vanilla and standardized type environment. The best practices of all your customers are coming forward, regardless of what technology vendor you are. You have a whole crew of customers that have brought forward their best practices and their best processes, and those are all being put together. And as much as that may be different from your current customized unique processes, the point you have to think about is, show me what standard is, help me get to standard, and help me reduce the amount of customization I have to do. The money that you're spending on your technology systems, both legacy as well as any customization you decide you think you need in the cloud, is really going to be an awful lot of money for you and something you really want to deviate away from. So I think it's important, to your point of what you know versus what you don't know. You don't know what it's like to be standardized. You don't know what it's like to have something completely different. So think about how all of that's brought to the table and work with the technology vendors that you're interviewing and you're moving through your RFP process. Help them understand why you're unique versus what they have, and work with them to find out what some of their other customers have done that may have had just as unique problems, but were able to use a standardized process much better and much easier. I think that's the first concern, if anything, Paul.
Yep, absolutely. So outside of that RFP and companies focusing on that and getting it wrong, what's the next biggest mistake a company can make when trying to select the ERP?
Not looking at the provider and not understanding the data set and how everything works. So, I give you an example. Just in our reference calls, I mean, many companies have said, wow, we really didn't understand what these cloud systems can do and how robust they are, because all we were doing is being stuck in the past that we just spoke about. But further to that, what they didn't realize also is they kept looking at demos that were online or something they could quickly look at, instead of saying, take my data, put some of my data in there and show me how this is going to make a difference from where I am today versus where I am going forward tomorrow. So it's really working with the vendors that you have in your selection process and asking them to take that data and show you how it's going to enable your business processes to be much better and make it easier for you to do work and become much more scalable and flexible.
Okay, excellent. So the Marketscape, is very interesting. The leaders are generally, companies that are focused on building and delivering real cloud solutions from the ground up. Many of the contenders and even major players are older products that have been around a long time that, have been on-premise products, and they've been moved or ported to the cloud. But a lot of the time they're just the same product sitting in a third-party data center. Do you think these types of products will provide a true digital transformation foundation, as those companies try and straddle their on-premise solution and their newer cloud solution?
Well, I think there's two factors to your question there. The first is the assumption is that a lot of these are just legacy or old on-premises. Not in all cases are they. In many cases, there are new SaaS and cloud-enabled products that have been brought forward. But they're at the beginning stages and the infancy stages in some cases, or they've only gone so far, and the references told us some of that information. Okay, so that's the first piece. The second piece is if you're getting at the point of legacy and on-premise that have just been made into a single tenant type solution, yes, there have been some of those in the past, and those take a while to move forward. Do I think that it's going to stop any of these companies? No. In many cases, what happens when you see a Marketscape like this, a lot of these companies are like, wait a minute, we're doing much more than that. And they realize that they're doing more that they haven't portrayed into the market. And in other cases, they need to make additional investments. So I think in many cases, there's a big solution here and an opportunity based on placement in many cases for the technology vendors.
Okay, excellent. So just finally, the presentation, is titled around, targeted for mid-market businesses. That's the title. But do you think the content is as relevant for enterprise-level customers or real upper-end mid-market customers and even small customers? Do you think the approach and the way that companies should go through it is similar?
I do. I think with large enterprises, what you find is the organizations are so big, you might see two-tier ERP models where they may try out a cloud or SaaS-enabled product with their legacy ERP just to make sure it's working, or with a company, new companies that they've brought in or acquired, and then they start to say, all right, how are we going to shift and what are we going to do? It's very similar. I just think it comes down to investment strategies, understanding your businesses, and understanding how quickly you can move or not move. And then on the other side of the equation, on the small, medium-sized business, which I got at a little bit in my presentation, I do think that that's very significant. If anything, the SaaS and cloud-enabled aspect has allowed companies to look at it as an operating expense and no longer a capital expense. So it's now opened the doors for small business to actually start out that way instead of just staying on the sidelines with Lotus Notes or Excel type files and being able to move beyond that.
Sure, excellent. Right, thank you very much, Mickey. That was outstanding. So I'm going to move on now and really talk about NetSuite as a leader in the Marketscape and why. IDC has positioned NetSuite as a leader, and the research outlines the key reasons for this, and I'd recommend everyone reads the research. It's very insightful. However, I will, for sort of the next 20 minutes, go into the key elements that really differentiate NetSuite for the modern business that really wants to grow and thrive today, but more importantly, in the future. So let's just talk about some of the key metrics behind NetSuite before we go into the detail. And NetSuite is really one of the first cloud companies. It was cloud before cloud was really a term, and it was a real pioneer in cloud computing. The only way that NetSuite has ever been deployed is over the cloud. So it encapsulates all the philosophical advantages a real cloud solution brings. It's modern, it's consumer-oriented, it's real-time, it's always accessible, it's always on, anywhere, anytime, any device. NetSuite itself is a large entity. There are over 5,500 employees globally supporting NetSuite customers around the world. There are over 40,000 plus organizations and subsidiaries using the product, again, around the world. So this is a sizable solution that's been growing quite substantially over the last few years as people have and companies have really seen the benefits of true cloud computing and what it will bring to them as far as digital transformation is concerned. NetSuite today is a global business unit of Oracle, and I'll talk a bit more about that later, but that is really being part of one of the technology leaders in the world with one of the biggest footprints around the world has really allowed us to accelerate our plans for NetSuite and the types of products we're developing and the type of geographies that we can take the product to. And NetSuite itself is a sizable entity with over $1 billion run rate as a business and growing substantially over the years. The growth is really, as I said, reflective of the number of companies that are really seeing NetSuite and the type of product NetSuite is as a foundation for what they need today and what they need in the future. So let's talk about that, what we're trying to address. So the pace of change is incredible. And technology is really outpacing best practice and what we knew before. And we talked about that, and Mickey talked about that earlier in the presentation. And every company has a different type of next that they require or a different type of opportunity for growth that they need to accommodate. That could be a new business model, and we're seeing business models evolve all the time. If you just think of traditional product companies, manufacturers, that were very transactional in nature in the past, where they would you would make a product, someone would order it, you'd ship it, invoice it, and recognize the revenue. Many of these companies now are moving into a recurring business model. The entire business model is changing, and they need solutions that are going to support them and enable them to do that. I mean, the example I always like to look at are printers. If you think in the past, you bought a printer, it went out. When you needed a cartridge replaced, you'd go and buy a cartridge and complain that you're paying $40 for a printer cartridge, which is almost as expensive as the printer. You'd go and plug it in, and that's the way that business model worked. But anyone who's bought a printer recently, you've got the option to buy on a recurring basis. So you pay a small amount a month. The printer is an IoT device. The IoT device is saying when the ink is about to run low, it measures what you've normally used in the past, and by the time it runs out, a new printer cartridge has arrived, and you're not complaining about how much the printer cartridge cost. and you're happy with the service you get. So that's an extreme example, but that's an example of a business model that's changed drastically. And if those printer companies couldn't handle this new recurring model, no matter how great this opportunity was for growth or to drive customer success, they would have huge issues in supporting it. So that's just an example of how business models are changing all the time, and you need a platform that's going to be able to accommodate that. Global markets, we see the world is definitely smaller. Technology has made the world smaller. So the ability to take advantage of global opportunity or global capacity is huge. And the type of infrastructure and systems you need in order to do that can be complex. They certainly were in the past. So again, that's something, again, you need to make sure the foundation is going to support. Technology is evolving all the time. We're seeing new competition coming in. Many companies are seeing new competition. We're seeing incredible innovation, and some of the old-fashioned things are there as well, like regulation. We see regulation going up and down all the time. We see the new data protection regulation that's coming out of Europe that have huge financial penalties for people that cannot prove that they're protecting consumers' data effectively. So although there's huge opportunity that technology and change is offering, and unless you have the systems and the backbone to be able to support that, you're not going to be able to take advantage of it. And when we look at NetSuite and how we're developing the product and what we're doing, it's all about helping to sort of manage that opportunity and that growth. Now, in the past, what happened with ERP systems is people would, ERP was going to solve all. So it was going to be a platform that connected up all the different departments, etc. But as time went on, people found out that, the ERP system they bought was great for the accountant, but if you're a salesperson, you just seemed like you were a prisoner or a slave for the accounting team. You'd be putting in transactions that did nothing for you but made their life easier. And you see that with lots of different products that are out there. You see ERP products that started as an accounting system, or ERP products that started as a CRM system, or ERP products that started as an HCM system. So what companies ended up doing is they ended up plugging in lots of other products in order to solve that problem. So they ended up with a connectivity issue, a bird's nest issue in managing all of that. And then if they had to customize it as well, they ended up, once it worked, they would leave it, because it was so expensive to upgrade, so expensive to move forward, so they would start falling behind as soon as they implemented and went live with the product. And we see today with this constant change and evolution and the constant opportunity that technology is offering, if you're stuck in that type of manner, then you're going to be in a very difficult position. And everything that drives are problems for businesses. And then Mickey outlined some of those earlier in the presentation. Data is fragmented. You cannot get a complete picture. And data is key today. Information is key, more so than ever, as more and more of it's generated. And if it sits across many silos, you're not going to be able to get the information you need to drive the business forward. Processes sit in silos. The sales process is different to the accounting process, which is on a different system, which is different to the supply chain process, which is on a different system. Multiple different user interfaces, broken transactions and order flows, different versions of the truth, all the things that many people have suffered with for years, but there were always going to be silver bullets that solve that. And ERP was supposed to be one of those. But the technology framework it was built on really didn't allow that to happen. Now, NetSuite solves that, and NetSuite differentiates itself really through 5 pillars that NetSuite is built on. And we'll go through some of those pillars. So we'll start off on the Unified Cloud Suite. So really philosophically at the base of NetSuite is it's built for the cloud. I mentioned this earlier. And that's just not saying that I access it via a browser or it sits in a firewall. I don't manage the technology. It's philosophically what that means. It's consumer-oriented. So it's this that anyone can pick it up and use it. If you think of all the consumer applications you use, there's no training for those. They're designed to be picked up and used. And too many ERP products are very esoteric. They have their own user interface. They're incredibly complex to set up. So people never use all the capabilities that sit within it. So when it's philosophically built for the cloud, it's consumer-oriented. It's always up to date. Always the latest release. Every single NetSuite customer, those 40,000 plus organizations we talked about, are all on the same release, on the one product. They're not smattered on different releases or stuck on old releases or it's difficult to upgrade. Everyone's on the latest release. It's always updated. It's always continually being updated with latest technologies and latest capabilities. And it's always available. NetSuite is up 99.99% of the time. And it's easy to access. You can access it anywhere. I remember I asked a customer of ours at an event recently. We were at a break, and I said, what's the feature you like most about NetSuite? And, I was thinking it might have been the billing area or the way that the real-time ledger works or that type of thing. And they said, I can answer any questions I want sitting in front of the TV. Whether I'm on my phone, whether on my tablet, whether on my PC, I don't have to go into an office. I don't have to go into VPN. I just have access to everything I need, I need, no matter where I am. And that was their favorite thing about NetSuite. And again, that's philosophically what a real cloud solution is, giving that ability to access what you need when you need it. It's built to run a business. Now, again, you might say, well, everything's built to run a business, but what do we mean by that? Well, as I said before, there are lots of products out there that weren't built to run a business. They were built to run a department, an accounting department, an HR department, a sales department, or an operations department, or a warehousing area. And then they morphed into these other systems. So they weren't optimized to run a business. They were optimized to run one area. And it was great if you were in that area, but if other NetSuite was always, from day one, was designed to run a business. So that when you go into the product and you're the sales manager, the product looks as though it's designed purely for you. If you're the accountant, the controller, you go in, it looks as though it's purely designed for you. So that, again, is a hallmark of a true cloud solution. And finally, the unified data model. So NetSuite is a completely unified model. So you can be analyzing information from your B2C storefront through to your Salesforce, through to the warehouse, through to the financial system and the support system, all in one place. You don't have to build data warehouses, all these other things to get access to that information. It's all there, available on one unified data model. And then there's the platform. So one of the things that people think about with cloud solutions, if everyone's on the same release, well, no one's allowed to do anything. You have to wait until NetSuite develops it. Well, that's not the case. NetSuite has an incredibly powerful platform that allows users to personalize their environment so it meets their needs. It allows business analysts to be able to configure workflows, screens, add fields, add forms, all that type of thing without writing a line of code, all the way up to partners who can develop very sophisticated brand new applications or modules on the platform. As I said before, one of the unique things about NetSuite is no matter what anyone does, everyone has moved up to the same release. It's every single NetSuite customer is on the same release, irrespective of how they've personalized, configured, or customized the product. And this incredibly powerful platform has driven a huge ecosystem of partners who are delivering horizontal and vertical solutions on the platform. And when they build those products, they all behave and act exactly like a NetSuite product. So it looks like it's NetSuite. It behaves like NetSuite. It's always at the latest release. So it gives an incredible depth and breadth to the application. And then intelligence. Intelligence is something that people are hearing about all around the world and all around technology today, artificial intelligence and everything else. The one thing about business intelligence and intelligence in general has always been at the heart of NetSuite. It's always been a standard component of the product. So many other products out there, you buy a business intelligence module, you build a data warehouse, you get a data scientist to construct the OLAP models, it writes reports. If you want something that you forgot about, then you have to put it in there. It's not real time. It's all of these other things. That's never been the case with NetSuite. Business intelligence is there. It's real time. It's available everywhere throughout the product. So if someone's going to looking at KPI, they can drill all the way down to the transaction. If someone's looking at a summary in a journal and a ledger, they can go all the way back to the sales order, the invoice, the works order that spawned that. So again, the platform is key within NetSuite. And then there's all the capabilities from omni-channel commerce, B2C, B2B, point of sale, the full ERP suite encapsulating financials, services requirements planning, supply chain management, customer relationship management, human capital management, and built for NetSuite. These are solutions that our partners build on the platform that, as I say, look and behave exactly the way that all the rest of NetSuite does. And then it's all that great capability, but it's also been able to take that global. All of that is available global around the world, whether that be the multi-book, multi-language capabilities, the multi-currency capabilities, or the local compliance and tax reporting that's required in each country. So any NetSuite customer, if they want to open an office or open a warehouse or open a facility or trade anywhere around the world, there's no limitation to that with NetSuite. And it's more than just the functionality that allows you to do that. If you just look at the technology, NetSuite allows one system for people to enter orders in China, in Australia, in South America, in North America, in Northern Europe, Western Europe, Southern Europe, Africa, all in the one system. In the past, when companies wanted to do that, they ended up having to deploy multiple solutions around the world just because of the sheer technology and internet speeds required in order to provide that performance. That's no issue for any NetSuite customer. They have a huge opportunity to take advantage of global growth and global opportunity and global capacity. And then finally, it's the industries, so the businesses that are supported. NetSuite supports from service-based industries such as software, services, advertising, media publishing, not-for-profits through the heavy product-based industries, manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. And NetSuite's one of those few companies that supports all of those really distinct business types from the service-based industries all the way through to the product-based industries. And as I mentioned earlier, that's more important today than ever that you have a company, that you purchase a product that can support those different business models simultaneously. This said, getting back to that printer application, if you were on the greatest distribution product ever, and all of a sudden the whole business moved to a recurring revenue or a service model, and your system couldn't support that, then all of a sudden, I mean, your administration overhead goes up, or you can't take advantage of that opportunity. So NetSuite is, all of these pillars really sum up what differentiates NetSuite as a product, and the things that have really led it to be the leader in the IDC Marketscape. But there's more than this. That cloud suite, that unified cloud suite, is really just the starting point. Earlier this year, we released Suite Success. In Suite Success, we re-engineered the way in which we build and deliver products. This is not just the case of saying, here's the greatest cloud solution ever that you can do anything with, has all the functionality that you need. Companies need to be able to use it, deploy it, get rapid return on investment, reduce the time required to generate return, so in the time to value. So we sort of re-engineered the entire way in which we build and deliver products. And Suite Success is our industry cloud solutions. So for every industry or micro vertical within that industry, we have a solution that's available out of the box that has all the leading practices, the workflows, the KPIs, everything that's needed to run that type of business. So we build all of that capability. But then we have an engagement model, and this gets back to some of the things that Mickey said when trying to choose the right product. The engagement model is all about helping companies understand how this product is going to help run their business. So right up front, as soon as the sales team engages with a prospect, they're going through the leading practices so that customers can see exactly how they're going to use the product and can identify where they may have something unique or they may have something that goes beyond that leading practice. And that leading practice is constantly updated and built based on the latest technologies and the latest ways the best companies in the world use enterprise solutions. So this engagement model allows the customer to see exactly how the product's going to run for them. So when they get a demonstration, they see exactly how it's going to work for them as a business. And if they then, all the way down to how they're going to import their data, and how their data is going to make its way into NetSuite. So when they sign as a customer and their instance gets set up, their live instance, it looks exactly the way it was during the demonstration, with all the roles, the workflows, the KPIs, reports. So when a salesperson logs in, they see a product that's built and designed for them with everything that they would need as a salesperson in that type of role in that type of business. So the way that a software salesperson sees their environment is going to be different to the way that a wholesale distributor salesperson is going to see their environment. So completely optimized for them. So that, again, during that implementation phase, it's all about adding value. It's not about starting off saying, well, how are we going to use the system now? How are we going to use all this great functionality that we've just purchased? It's all value add at every single stage. And then beyond that, there's a consumption model, a sort of staged stairway consumption model where a company can say where they are in the maturity level, or what they need in order to hit their business goals. So it might be they just need to remediate to start with, which means that they need to put in, an accounting. They want the accounting functionality right. They want to get CRM stabilized. They want to get inventory stabilized. They want all of that in, and then once they have that capability implemented, then they're going to implement B2B commerce and B2C commerce. So they can determine where they are in the maturity level, what they need to implement to support the business goals, rather than having to implement everything in order to get any type of return on value. So NetSuite customers who purchase the Suite Success Editions get live very, very quickly. They get live in a couple of months rather than a couple of years, or a year or 12 months. And then finally, there's the optimization step. Because it's a cloud solution, the product has always been updated with new capabilities. The leading practices are always getting updated. Technology is always evolving. So there's a mechanism in there to allow customers to continually optimize and take advantage of the product as they evolve. They're not stuck on a release. They're always being updated. Every single NetSuite customer who invests in NetSuite, every dollar they invest in us has been returned back to their product. It's not being paid in maintenance and only going into the latest version of the product, which they can't get to because they're stuck on a release. Everyone's on the same release. Everyone is always getting access to that latest technology. So Suite Success has been incredibly successful for our customers, and it's a whole brand new way of that we've engineered to deliver success to our customers. And we don't stop there. As I talked about, we're a global business unit of Oracle, and we're coming up on a year anniversary of that taking place. And Oracle really has helped us expand and accelerate what we're doing with NetSuite for our customers. So they're investing in us, delivering us more countries, us delivering more country capability, having NetSuite people available in more countries around the world, and bringing the product to more prospects and customers. We continue to add more industries, where the product is available with every single capability an industry would need. We're adding more products and more functionality at an accelerated pace, and that is obviously driving more success then for our customers. So I'll just wrap up by thanking everyone for listening to the presentation. I think Mickey gave some incredible insight into how to select the right ERP vendor. I've summarized some of the key things that really have driven NetSuite into the leader in their Marketscape, and really what NetSuite does that's going to help you not only thrive today, but grow and thrive tomorrow. So if you need any more information, by all means, go into the NetSuite website. We have all that information there, and contact a NetSuite representative. Thank you very much.